Merry Meet, Annie here. I wanted to record this video because I really enjoyed the topic for the Pagan Perspective this week. And if you're watching this and are not familiar with the Pagan Perspective, it's a collab channel, and you can find it, it's one word, Pagan Perspective. And I'm a substitute host there. So sometimes I'm contributing, and sometimes it's not a time for a sub, and our regular hosts are there. And this has been an interesting week. And oftentimes when I see these topics on both Pagan Perspective and other collaborative channels that I look at, they make me think for the week, and I really enjoy the opportunity to think about something and see what it is for me. Now, the topic of this week came from our friend Feather on Pagan Perspective, and she had asked, are there times during the day when we're called to a pause by the divine in some way? So I was thinking of it as I was reading the description. If she's talking about when do we, it's kind of like when are we called to attention, and when do we feel a pat on the shoulder, kind of an attention getter from the divine. And now that's my interpretation of her question, but that's how it grew into me as the week went by. And I was stopping to think that always for me at dawn, just as the sun is breaking, it's a very important time of day for me, and it always causes me to stop in my tracks. And it's a feeling of pay attention, the new day's starting. It shifts my relationship to the day. If I for some reason was coming into it with stress, or something unpleasant was going to happen, so I had a sense of dread, it's a stop and think and welcome this turning and this new day. So for me, dawn is always an attention getter for me. And over the wintertime especially, it is fantastic because I work an early shift where I work, and I'm coming across the parking lot as the sun is just getting to the horizon. So for the first part of the winter, it's dark, and it's every day it gets slightly more and more and more, so that I am arriving as the sun is coming up, and I can always, every morning, take a moment to just stand in the quiet and appreciate where dawn is. And of course, slowly, 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 it becomes dawn. And now I actually need to go outside for a little bit before I go to work, because dawn's happening, I guess it's happening about 6:15 or so now. So I'm actually already in work by a few minutes. So I actually make a point of going outside and experiencing it before I leave the house. So dawn's always that kind of moment for me. Stop and pause and pay attention and align myself with the energies of the world. Darkness is always that kind of experience for me. It's not a particular time. It might be when I take the dogs out for the last time. It may be when I feel the call to go out if there's a moon, or at the dark of the moon, when I actually feel a call to go out and be in the darkness, take a walk, whatever it is that puts me outside once darkness has settled. And that feeling of the darkness washing over me, that moment is always one of those tap, 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 pay attention kind of moments for me. A releasing of kind of my earthly self, and a heightened sensitivity to what messages might be there for me. So I was aware as I went through this past week that those times are specifically those kinds of times that Feather was asking about. And I was very interested to find out, because I thought, well, there probably won't be other times. There are the intentional times when I set to meditate or to pray, or I'm in circle, or I'm in circle with my coven, not just in circle by myself doing something, but when I'm in with my coven mates, there's the moments that are intentional. I thought there's that. I also thought that there is the time I spend with my husband intimately, the coming together and the adoration of each other and the energies that move through us in those private times, those sexual times, even those affectionate times, are very much a stop and pause, a moment to me when something makes itself known to me that is not just the physical, not just the giving my husband a hug or spending intimate time with him. There's an energy that makes itself known as a presence. So that's always a given too. So beyond that, I was thinking, I don't know that there really are moments that are givens to me. I thought that was the sum of it all for me. And I realized this past week that I am called to those moments very specifically by sound. Because this week I was paying attention to, when does it happen? When do I have a shift for a moment that puts me outside of the here and now and perks up my spiritual ears to hear what there is to hear? And I realized often it comes to me on the wings of sound. And by that I mean I noticed this week that all of a sudden, amongst all the bird sounds that are happening now, with our windows being open occasionally now, with the weather changing, amongst all those bird noises out there, the cacophony of spring, one bird is making a sound that all of a sudden I hear it so purely. I hear nothing else. And when I hear the nothing else but that bird, it's like a portal opens for me to experience something. So I noticed moments this week. The sound of my husband's deep breathing one day did it to me. The hum of the refrigerator actually did it to me at one point this week. I'm thinking of, I was on my way to work, and there was the sound, although I could not see it because it was dark, of a motorcycle, and that did it to me. It is either a sound in the silence, or it's a sound amongst other sounds that just for a moment pulls me out of the total experience of everything down to this pinpoint experience. And very often there is some kind of an energy that I feel at that moment. And I also noticed this past week that there are times when the combination of all the sounds around me create that. It's like when all the sounds I hear become a drone. So think of it if you're in a mall, although I don't go to malls, but I thought of this as a comparison for those of you who shop. If you're in a mall and it's just that constant noise between the music and the shoppers and somebody's child is screaming and there's just all this stuff that's going on, fountains, think of all the things you hear in a mall. Barrage, 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 all the noises, all the noises, all the noises. And there's a point at which it becomes one noise. It blends into one it is the sum of all those sounds and energies, and that will do it to me. It happened to me this week. I work in a hospital. It happened to me walking the floor in the hospital where there's all the sounds of nurses and carts being pushed and machinery making sounds and visitors, and just all the sounds became this that became this amazing energy that just washed over me. And at one point this week, when it did, it also brought a spiritual connection to something. I had it happen when the windows were open and all the new sounds of the neighborhood, the new sounds for this year of the neighborhood, radios and motorcycles and cars and leaf blowers. Somebody was cleaning off the last of the leaves, and dogs barking, and just think of all the wind was blowing. So there was the wind chimes in my backyard, and there was all these wonderful sounds of suburbia going on. And all of a sudden, they individually they disappeared into this hum. Once again, it was this energy that first I was hearing all of these sounds, and then they blended into one sound, and it's like it took me outside of the here and now. The individual pinpointed sounds and the combinations of sounds into this energetic drone of life kind of thing, I'm assuming they have always happened, and this week, because I was paying attention to the question that Feather posed, I experienced them as they were happening and acknowledged them for what they were. And there probably were a dozen instances during the week that one or the other of the two things happened. So I really appreciated the question because it gave me an opportunity to really, they became kind of moments of being in both worlds at the same time. You know, that feeling you get in Circle? They became tender moments almost, where something just released and relaxed and you felt open to something. Both hearing one sound so purely amongst everything else, and then the combination of all of a sudden, all the sounds around me, the sounds of my life building into like a hum that was just, it was truly divine. So thank you, Feather, for making me stop and think as this week went by, because this is going on all the time, and I was taking it for granted. And I wanted to share what this experience of the week felt like to me, both the things I always am aware of that bring the tap on my shoulder, the moment that I know something's trying to get my attention, that there's energy available for me to connect to that's outside of this mundane world that we live in. Sometimes it feels like a specific conversation with the gods, and sometimes it just feels like opening up to an energetic force which is just invigorating. Thank you, Feather, for sending me in that direction this week, and I really, really enjoyed perking my spiritual ears up this week and paying a little bit more attention. So I encourage everybody to try that little exercise and see, in a week's time, for instance, what are the moments that pique your spiritual sensitivity, is how I was thinking of it, all of a sudden having a sense of something. And if you have those kind of experiences, I sure would love you to reply to me and let me know, or share a video with me to know what your experiences might have been like. I wish you mirth and reverences and those kinds of moments. Merry part.